Let's, yeah, very nice. I'd like to call the meeting of the Design Review Committee for the City of Cotati for August 6th to order. Would the Secretary please call the roll?
Member Glendenning, Member Langberg, Chair Morgan,
Present.
Member Weaver,
Present.
I should say Vice Chair Weaver, Member West,
Here.
Member Lampert,
Here.
and let the record reflect that Members Connell and Langberg are absent, and should they arrive, we'll make sure the record reflects that as well.
Correct. Yes, thank you. Noted. We have no minutes to approve. Our planning director, are there any changes to the agenda?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We'd like to make one small change, which would be to divide up the reports by staff into two sections and just very quickly introduce you to two new staff members that we have that I'm very thrilled to have with us, and they're doing great work and providing great service to the citizens. First, Alan Martin is our new building official, and I'm calling them new. They jumped right in, and they don't feel new, but they're new for you. And John Paul Harries, our new planner. He goes by JP. I don't think he would mind if any of you call him JP. And they both come to us with extensive backgrounds in their respective fields, and we're lucky to have them. And if at any time you have questions or issues that either of the two of them could help you with, please feel free to contact
John, it's John, correct? What?
Alan.
Alan, I'm sorry. Hello, I'm listening. Okay. What your role is? I'm building official. And for my benefit, what does that do? The good stuff. All right. All right. Very good. Thank you. Thank you. Welcome. Welcome, both of you. Yeah.
And I think Alan's going to go back to work, and John Paul's going to stay with us since he'll be presenting to you all at some point. He's going to stay and listen to the conversation. Thanks, Alan. Thank you for that accommodation,
Sure.
Mr. Chair.
Alan, I'm sorry. Hello, I'm listening. Okay. So, at this point, then, if we have any members of the public that would wish to make comment on items not on the agenda, please step forward to the podium. Seeing none, we'll close that portion of public comment and get to the matters at hand, which is item F1, preliminary and final design review for the Veronda Falletta Ranch Open Space Pathway and associated improvements item. Is there a report on the item?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I also should have mentioned probably in my reports that we have a series of firsts today, and we'll get to some of those in a minute later on, but one of those is that this is our first live audio streaming of the Design Review Committee. I don't know if Tammy mentioned that earlier. So just so you have that in your minds as we go forward. Our other first is this is the first meeting with our seventh member. Unfortunately, that seventh member couldn't be with us today. Mike Connell, who's an architect, lives just outside the city limits. And our new energy position, which is Dr. Carl Lampert here on the end. And so we're pleased to have both of them.
Yes, pleased to be here. Welcome to the committee and all that comes with it. Yes.
All the good stuff that comes with it.
Yes.
So on to the matters at hand. Thank you. This project site is the 4.37 acre parcel that's just across from us just across from City Hall here, and it's a parcel that was purchased jointly by the Sonoma County Agricultural Preservation Open Space District and the city in order to preserve it as an example of traditional farming and ranching in the area and to protect it as open space. Excuse me. And the city continues to develop a long-range plan for that space. The ultimate uses that can be used on the parcel or that can be implemented on the parcel are limited by the conservation easement that was placed over the property to outdoor recreation and education, agricultural activities, habitat restoration and enhancement. The city's responsibilities in the agreement that we have with the Conservation District or the Open Space District is that the city will develop it into a public park, and we're responsible for that development, for the park operations, and for the property maintenance. And the district has a responsibility to oversee the city's activities and ensure that any future development or projects are consistent with that preservation intent. The general approach of the city thus far has been to maintain the property. This project implements portions of that in terms of the fencing. And our other prongs of our first approach are to increase the safe access to the property by the public. So as I mentioned in the staff report, with the introduction of the sheep or the reintroduction of the sheep, we've seen a lot of increased public curiosity and interest in the site, and those users were primarily having to go in the street or travel in the street in the vehicle way, and as we know, that street's already pretty narrow. So we were looking for ways to increase the public access to the property without getting in the way of future programming, which we haven't yet defined. So that, more than anything, drove the location of the access pathway. Our next big milestone in the development of the property as a park is to identify an operating partner. If we want to operate it as a public park with a rural agricultural tradition, we really need a person or an entity who's experienced in that endeavor. And that's been a little bit of a challenge for us to find that partner simply because of funding. Most people or most entities don't have the funding, or they rely on grant funding, so it's a little uncertain. So that continues to be probably the biggest hurdle for us to cross in the development of the property as a park, but we continue to work on that. Once we identify that partner, our strategy would be to then begin the public process to refine the use concepts that the partner might bring with them, and to develop a site plan that's consistent with the preferred uses that come out of that public process, and also the functionality that needs to be there for it to operate as a small-scale farming operation. So that's sort of a large, a high-elevation picture of what we're trying to accomplish over there and how this project fits into it. Again, it was a way for us to increase public safety and provide some of that access in terms of the picnic tables and the improved connection to City Hall and the other sidewalk connections that run toward La Plaza. So we tried to design a project that got the public some access to it in a safe way, and yet reserved the bulk of the property for future programming. In a nutshell, those were the design parameters we were working under. The project components, as detailed in the specific plan, consist mainly of demolition of some of the pieces of sidewalk and other infrastructure that are in the way, some restriping of the asphalt to facilitate the new locations for ADA ramps and sidewalks, some isolated storm drain facility removal and replacement, and removal of a tree stump that's over here on the city community center side. The new pathway is proposed for a natural pave, a resin pavement material that has a more natural appearance to it, but it has better durability and better ADA access than decomposed granite. So we got some of the same appearance with a better durability out of this natural pave material. The project includes new perimeter fencing or boundary fencing along essentially 3 sides of the property. The fencing that separates the 4.37 acres from the parcel, the separate parcel where the Folletti home is in good repair, and we aren't proposing to replace that at this point. The addition of the picnic tables, 4 of them at the corner of East School and El Rancho Drive. Enhanced in-tree landscaping at the corners of West Sierra and El Rancho to showcase the picnic area and the open space district sign that's there on the property now. And improved pedestrian circulation and access to what will be parking that would serve the users of the park, which is the parking along Cater Field and the community center. So we've got a better pedestrian crossing over East School Street, as well as tying together those sort of fragmented improvements that are where the electric vehicle charging stations are now. So that too is included in the scope of the project. In terms of the actual materials proposed, the picnic tables and the waste receptacles are proposed to be the city standards. The landscaping is drought tolerant and native when possible. We're weighing the drought tolerance and showiness, if you will, against nativity. So the palette that you see is our best effort with our landscape architect to achieve that. And we're adding 1 additional new valley oak tree to the property in the corner by the picnic tables. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have. Damien Obid, our city engineers, city manager, and generalist around the city is here as well and can answer public works questions that you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for staff? Go right ahead.
I had one. Vicki, very nice. I was wondering, when you're going to pull part of this old fence out, which I think is a redwood post, is that right, what's currently there? I don't know.
I believe they are redwood.
Are you going to reuse that? Is there a plan to reuse it somehow, or?
There was no current plans to reuse it, and I don't believe it was. I believe it was cypress wood.
Cypress. That's very hard. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Generalist around the city is here as well and can answer.
I had one other.
Yeah, just let's just kind of go this way. Go ahead. You
Is it
get your
possible,
questions, and then let's move right around.
Have we used natural pave before in the city here, or in that vicinity?
So we have not. The only we've used, of course, concrete and asphalt, traditional asphalt,
Right.
and we've used decomposed granite, like at the Rose Garden and La Plaza Park. But part of what we were looking at, both for this project, but also in the bigger picture, was to look at a product that we could that would be low maintenance from a public works perspective, and also meet the ADA requirements, and be something that we could potentially use as a sort of a natural or rural path standard in other parts of the city where there's a more rural feel, and we don't really want to construct a traditional gray sidewalk or black asphalt sidewalk.
Okay, so this will be the first time then.
That was a long way of saying yes. It's the first time.
Sure, other people have questions.
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One is the picnic tables. It would be nice to see something that demonstrate the accessibility of the picnic tables, and it does look like a wheelchair could probably come up against the end of those tables, but there aren't any dimensions on the detail that demonstrate that. So that's something we should just really make sure of. And then the other question is, seems like it'd be nice to have a drinking fountain over there, but
That was a long way
just wondering about that. And then the other thing is lighting. So is there, just normal street lighting, or no lighting, or, yeah, so I was wondering about that. And then, so, when you were talking about parking, so all of the parking is across the street, right? There's going to be no parking right along the park?
That's right. I can take that one as well as the lighting one, and
Okay,
if it gets
thank
too
you.
detailed, I'll have to hand to Damien. But currently, there is no room on East School Street to add parking. There's a fairly good supply of parking in front of the basketball courts that is used by Little League, and then all of, during the off hours, as well as the community center parking, which I think there's probably about 10 right there in front of the classrooms. And then, of course, all of this parking at City Hall is available for users as well, and it's especially helpful in the off hours. So in the future, what I think is likely is that the residence that's on the property would be reused as the museum that's called out in the long-term plan, and I think that's where the ADA parking would go. There's a driveway there, and that's an easy spot that would be central to the whole of the property. And so at this point, that's where we're thinking we would add additional ADA accessible parking.
Okay, thank you.
And just to the committee, a reminder from our secretary here to speak directly into the mic when we're speaking. We are, in order to get the good recording and all that.
Could I ask one question related to the last question?
We'll come back to you.
Okay.
Okay, so, Harris?
Okay, my question is more around my inability to read the tiny type on the plans. So the fencing so replacing the fencing in the existing location with the exception of bumping it out in around that area where the picnic tables are going in under that tree. There's another dashed line on the plan that I don't know what it means. At first I thought, oh, the fence is and we're getting way more park availability of people to be on the park, but now I'm thinking that's probably not what that line is.
There is some fencing inside the property, if you
Okay, so that's existing fencing?
So,
conceivably, yes.
The parking, I should have mentioned that, yes. The fencing, for the most part, along the East School Street frontage is just, we move the fence in just enough to accommodate the pathway and the shoulder for that and some bits of landscaping. But when it gets down to the corner at El Rancho, we bump the fencing in that shape that you do see to get it outside. Basically, it's enough to get tables under the tree and not be impacting the roots of the tree. So far enough out away from the roots, but under the canopy where possible. So it does bump in there.
Okay,
That
so
line that you
the
see.
path and then that picnic area is the only actual area of the park that people will have access to. The rest is still fenced off with the sheep behind it.
And from the picnic area, there will be the extension of the pathway north to connect to the sidewalk that's on El Rancho Drive. So currently, where there's no access on El Rancho, there will be a pathway.
Okay.
And other than that, yes, that's the limit at this point.
Okay, because there's another dashed line that sort of goes very wiggly from the house to the barn and around up. That I don't have no idea what it means because I can't find it in the legend.
It's talking about that sort of subdivides the project or the property, and when I went out there just before the meeting, is clearly divided into like fields.
Oh, okay, that's what that's.
With another fence, and because the sheep are over in
So they
one
can move the
area and
sheep.
not here, yada yada. So,
Okay, got it.
I think that's what that was. That was my interpretation.
Okay.
Correct
Yes,
or not?
yes, that's correct. There's a couple of interior fences that we're not proposing to do anything with. The one of them that's on the north side of the driveways keeps the sheep out of the orchard. So that's one of them. And
You did indicate that in your staff report. I do recall that.
Okay.
Anything else?
No, I think that's it.
All right, let's go around again here.
I had a question about El Rancho, the El Rancho Drive, which is the corner over here. Is there any parking currently on that, the piece that's in which you're going to put the walkway in?
There's no formal parking along there in that section. There is as you get further north, but in that section,
The residence start, there's parking. That's what I noticed.
right.
Could something be put in there, like an ADA or a wheelchair parking, something like that?
I think it would be a challenge because that street is also narrow, and if we were to expand the asphalt, we'd be into the drainage.
Okay. It's open drainage. isn't
It's
it?
open drainage.
Yeah,
yes.
I see. Okay, thank you.
Jay, anything? Okay. Sally?
Oh, yeah, just back to the lighting question.
Yes, thank you for reminding me. There's currently no additional lighting proposed with the project. There are streetlights on East School Street. There, yeah.
Harris? I think the question of the picnic tables, I mean, at least the kind I'm familiar with it, like county parks and state parks is where they'll have, not all of the picnic tables, but they'll have some that'll have that ADA extension on one end for, I think, are we going to use that on one of the tables, or is that, is there a formula for that, a requirement for that, or, I'm curious.
I don't know about a formula, but I do think we would want to do that. So that's a good point, that we can make sure that at least one of the tables has the lowered tabletop for ADA.
But it's not actually a lower tabletop, it's
Just
an
extension
extended
without.
one, so there's no seat that allows someone to slide underneath it, I guess.
Okay,
Yeah.
we can definitely ensure that happens.
Okay, just to open it up here, any other comments or questions of staff on this?
Not just one more.
Go ahead.
Vicki, is there lighting on that corner?
That corner being,
The corner between, I'm sorry, it's East School and El Rancho. Is there lighting near there? Is there street lighting?
or do we have a
I
figure
I don't know,
that
I come here
shows-
during the daytime, so.
I believe there's one mid-block, I know, and there's some generally around El Rancho, but I don't know if they're right at the intersection or not.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe, could be wrong on this, but I believe there's a utility pole with one of those mounted lights on it
Okay.
around there. I don't recall any standalone lights aside from the decorative ones that are in the Civic Center parking lot on those concrete pedestals. So they're across the street.
I was sort of curious what it might look like at night, so maybe I should come back here when my sun goes down. Is there? It's really hard for me to read that.
I know these reduced.
I know, I was staring at it, and,
But there is a symbol here for street light.
yes, where is it? That was my problem.
Well, I think the message here is there's no new lighting proposed to whatever lighting is out there currently. And I think that's what's in front of us right here, unless we feel like making a recommendation to either reevaluate the lighting or propose new lighting, or consider as this moves forward in the process. And it looks like we're taking a minute to determine about lighting.
Want to run out to the corner and have a look?
Well, I mean, what's the sense of the committee here? Is this how, what's our, do we have what's our concern for this issue, other than wanting to know what's there?
Personally, I was just sort of curious if there was new lighting going to be added and what it would be. I'm really not too concerned about the lighting at all. But then, just back to general comments, I think this is really great. I love the whole idea of it. I do think it'd be nice to have a drinking fountain since there's picnic tables, but that would just be an added item. But I just think it's great. I really like it.
I kind of like that idea too, especially when we were, talking about putting those water bottle refillers at another intersection project that I wasn't so sure, people were passing by were going to actually use, and if here's a place where people are actually going to be sitting and using it, that a water fountain makes more sense in this location than it did at the Northern Gateway.
It's already
project.
water supply
But I don't know if there's water.
in the area.
Well, I see irrigation on here for
I
the
don't think you
farm,
can
but
use the same, I don't think you can use irrigation. No.
I mean, there is, of course, the ball fields right across the street in close proximity to all of this, but
There are water sources in the area, so I don't think that would be an insurmountable issue, finding water.
it kind of sounds like we might want to make a recommendation to that effect. I'm sort of guessing here, but I sort of hear that.
if it's doable.
Yeah, that's the kind of recommendation we make. I looked at this and when the package came to us this week and felt that since, I think somewhere in the last year or so, I'd been made aware of that this was actually something that belonged to the city and had a purpose and not just a piece of land that somebody hadn't put 15 houses on. And so actually having and seeing a way that we're taking steps forward to make it a civic asset and increase the availability to it, it's a good thing. It's a good thing. This is pretty cool. It's almost like, well, okay, what's next? What's next? What are we going to do that? And then I see, well, this began in 2008, and now it's 2015. So I guess if I had a question, it would be, and this isn't really even more for this particular item, but how do we see this project playing out? I mean, to some kind of thing where actually the whole site or most of the site is available. I understand the obstacle to get to bring an operator or a partner into all of this, but
I think when the city committed to the project, we had more funding through redevelopment that would have allowed some of the infrastructure to be in place and would have then therefore freed up more money from the general fund to do programming types. With the loss of redevelopment money, the bulk of the city's support is going to come in the infrastructure improvement. So it will be a challenge. It may be that we have to approach it more incrementally than what we thought of. It may be that we come back to you in another year or so with another physical improvement that we could program piece by piece rather than what we had originally thought about finding a partner who was going to make it happen. So I don't have a great answer for a plan B yet. It's that we're still trying to figure out what plan B might be.
in the scope of our recommendation here is on this project, and this project was going to move forward and actually be done if approved?
Yes.
This is not just a plan. We're really going forward with this.
This is a project, yes,
Okay.
for sure. This is one of the ones that, as I said in the introduction, we can do and provide community benefit without impacting what we might want to have happen later. So I think the construction period, I'll let Damien answer that, but I think you were planning the fall for bids and.
Yeah, we were hoping to bid it in fall or winter and then start this construction or do the construction in the spring of next year. And so in addition to this, it's not really it's not the programming, which is the end point of all this. But the other thing that we're running in parallel or slightly behind this is just restoring the structures out there. Mm-hmm. So not really programming them for their ultimate use, but restoring them so that they're solid and can last for a long time. And then the long-term goal is to get someone out there. Hopefully sooner than long-term, but it's been a challenge so far.
The material that you're, this name escapes me right now, the material that you're using for proposing to use for the walkway itself, It's funny, when I read about it, I was just thinking towards the rose garden material there and that sort of thing, which is a really nice feel and all of that. But the examples that you showed in the packet here of, I guess, down in San Francisco there by the Presidio, and I can't quite, I know I've been there, I can't quite place that, but I'm just, how similar are the surfaces to this new surface compared to the rose garden type of surface? I mean, that's a value judgment, but I'm curious. Is it smooth or?
I think the primary difference you'll notice is that when you do a decomposed granite surface, you're going to have some loose material on the surface, and it just in our experience, it tends to work best when you have a confined, pretty flat area, because if you have drainage or anything like that going across it, or if it's something you'd use on an off-street sidewalk, it's a lot of maintenance to keep decomposed granite in a condition that's accessible. So the color should be very similar. I think the primary difference you'll notice is just the surface texture. It'll probably be flatter and more similar to, I guess, more similar to like a concrete in terms of no loose material, hopefully on the surface, and more controllable in grade and slope, but with hopefully a natural looking surface.
In the samples that we looked at, it actually has an aggregate appearance to it, close up, more like a paver. It doesn't have a uniform color like asphalt. It has more the texture of asphalt because the undulations are pretty shallow. That's an engineering term. But the appearance, it has the appearance of a small aggregate in it.
Thank you.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
How does it hold up?
Next.
I'm sorry. How does it hold up if we get a huge rainstorm? I hope.
And again, let's speak into the mic.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry. I'm
sorry.
out. Okay, how does it hold up if you get a large rainstorm?
So we had some longer discussions with, and we looked at various different materials with the landscape architect. We were looking for some type of replacement material, and in a lot of ways you can tell when they ship these samples, they ship them in little boxes, and just by being moved around and handled, they start crumbling on the edges, and and that's usually a warning sign, like this is not going to probably hold up like you want it to. And in terms of drainage, it should drain fine without developing like gullies or like you'd see with a loose aggregate material, like you see in parks typically when you have
see pockets forming and things like that.
Yeah, you shouldn't see that with this material.
And by Damien saying that pieces were coming off in the boxes, I think the point was that we're sealing those off with shoulders of rock. They'll have small shoulders that will help it drain off, and those will be of large aggregate rock, like a base material.
And then, so my question, did I hear you say something about changing out the sign that's here at the corner?
Not changing it out, but it will remain, although it's a little rustic looking, but that's the size of sign that the district requires for to let the public know that it is preserved in its open space. So we weren't proposing necessarily to change that. The way the landscaping palette is at that corner, it's meant to actually emphasize it and maybe hide the bare bones kind of 4x4s that are holding it up. We will at some point be using the sign standard that is along the Laguna Trail for the other interpretive signs. We're working on the first of the interpretive education signs, which is one about the ranch history. And so those will be mounted at portions along. maybe in the beginning, it'll only be that one, but once the programming is done, there will be a variety of those smaller interpretive signs along the park, and those will be mounted on the same type of base as the Laguna Trail, which is a Corten steel, I think, base and frame.
My only comment about the sign is, like, right now at this time of year, I always roll my eyes when I walk past that sign, and it says this beautiful parcel, because it kind of doesn't look that great right now, but this is going to help, I think.
Well, it looks like everywhere else.
That's true.
Thank you. Any other questions for them? All right, thank you for that staff report. Let's bring it back to the committee here. And so for your, it's Carl?
Yeah.
Carl, for your benefit, mostly what we do is essentially we make recommendations essentially to planning or the city council, mostly to planning. We don't really approve, or we can disapprove, right, make a recommendation to disapprove. But that's kind of that's kind of what motions we actually do in our process here. So just to be clear on that, I always thought, oh boy, I'm going to thumb up or thumb down, but no, we're really making a recommendation to the Planning Commission, which we are essentially a committee of. So with that, I would ask if there's any discussion that the committee wants to have about this, or if anyone feels so moved to make a motion on this item.
I'll move that we recommend approval of the plan with the one amendment that, if at all possible, if there's a way to get a drinking fountain or water on or near it, in the picnic area.
Is there a second for that?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that motion? Secretary, please call for the vote.
Member Glendenning? Aye. Chair Morgan?
Aye.
Vice Chair Weaver?
Aye.
Member West?
Aye.
Member Lampert?
Aye.
Motion passes 5 ayes, 2 absent.
Thank you. That concludes the discussion on the matter F1. Let's move to item G, which is reports by staff.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a very brief update on projects. We continue to work on potential solutions to the issues around the Cotati Station project, the apartment project that you viewed some months back.
On
Santero Way,
right.
yes, thank you. Not sure at this point whether it's will end up going right on to City Council or whether there'll be redesign that comes back to you, but we are still working on it at a staff level. And also on that same individual's property on Valparaiso, which is an amendment to their existing approved
100 Valparaiso.
100 Valparaiso,
Yeah.
yes. So those two projects I expect you'll be hearing more about coming up. We have an industrial building, I'll call it an infill industrial building that's in review right now. Still a bit of ways from being ready for public hearing. We have to make a determination on the environmental, and they need to make some site changes. But that's good news. That should be a great addition to the industrial park. And generally, we're working on the climate action plan. We just got a complete 500-page administrative draft of that plan a few weeks ago, and we're reviewing that at the staff level. And there will be, I think, a series of either public open houses or public meetings of some type to introduce that draft to the communities when we're ready, when the county-wide effort is ready. So you'll be hearing about that. And
is that actually something that this committee will need to review?
It won't come to you. There's no actual. There are several implications for physical development, but there's nothing that falls within the design purview at this point. It's a large policy document, and there are several measures in there that developers could choose from to reduce their carbon emissions footprint. So no immediate one, but I imagine several of you will be interested in hearing about it. And with that, I don't know, I didn't ask Damien to prepare for this, but if he wants to give you an update on any citywide projects, he may want to.
I can just let you know real briefly that the resurfacing of the Cater basketball courts, which is very near the project area we just spoke about, is basically done. So
Looks sharp out there.
yeah,
Hadn't seen that. It was pretty wild.
Bring my basketball next time, because I do play out there.
yeah. Yeah, next time you come to meetings, you should bring your basketball. So that's essentially done. The downtown project, we're working through submittals with the contractor right now, and the notice to proceed was issued for August 12th, so I expect the contractor will be out actually on site sometime shortly after that. So hopefully everyone can maintain their patience as that progresses, because typically once a tractor shows up on the side of the road, traffic comes to a halt. So hopefully that goes smoothly. And then the only other project update, although it may not be as of much interest to you all, is we just repainted the water storage reservoir, which was the city's reservoir for drinking water. It's a million-gallon tank up on the hill off West Sierra. It's a pretty shade of light green.
Damien, what about the East Katati, that little shopping center on East Katati by the gym? I don't know what the name of it.
Right, Village Walk.
The Oliver Shopping Center, or the
No, the one just
parcel?
east of the gym.
It's not actually a shopping center. It's actually a development that we.
Residential
It's a
subdivision.
residential
Yes.
subdivision, yeah.
That came before the committee several years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, what's going on with that?
They're still trying to determine whether it makes financial sense for them to move forward. So they pulled permits on their models so that they could have their plans far enough along to do cost estimating on them. And now I think they're in the process of trying to value engineer those plans a little bit. They have some foundation systems because of the Adobe that's out there. They have some more expensive foundation systems they're required to build. So it's adding to their cost.
Is that on Lancaster?
It is, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Across between the gas station and the gym.
It's 40 or 50 units, and there's single and multiple family units in there, as I recall.
It's 42 units, and they are single-family detached and townhomes, basically, with some second units over garages.
Right, that's right. I actually had one question. We had an item several years ago in that neighborhood of a home with a permit issue off of Cypress, which was there was a permit issue on that, and I think we did not actually get to review that, but we were about to, and for quite a while the work that was stopped was still stopped, and I happened to be walking through that area in the last few months and noticed that it seems to have either been concluded or whatever. I just was curious to whatever extent. I mean, has that matter been resolved or with the city, or?
It has been resolved. I believe it did come to you. It was, they needed a variance because they were a foot above the height.
Right.
And the Planning Commission granted the variance, and so they got their permits.
Okay.
It took them a long time
Okay.
to get through their construction, but they
Okay.
did ultimately resolve all that.
Okay.
Yeah. And then,
go ahead.
did
ahead.
you have another question? My one last report item would be just to acknowledge Tammy's work with getting our first packet out in our new agenda management system, and to make sure that worked okay for everybody. It's a great system, so if you see bugs in it, we put our standard template in there, and there are a couple things that need to be refined with that, but generally it seemed to work okay. So if you have any problems, just let us know.
I would say that the packet was very downloadable and very, very user-friendly to do that. And if the email said, oh, by the way, there's the hard copy sitting at the police station, and you can go get that. I missed that point. So I walked in here today without a hard copy of the packet, and I realized, oh, that's actually a problem. So I don't know if it was my not reading of the email, or which it certainly could have been. I've had a lot of distractions this week, but so that didn't work for me, and I'll blame my operator error on that one. But on the other hand, the downloadable packet was awesome to be able to pull that up and go right through it. So yes, there's some feedback for you. I'm getting some
Great.
head nods here from others.
There was an email about
I got a separate email.
Yeah, okay.
From Becky.
Somehow I didn't get that. Okay, fair enough. Okay, anything else?
No, that's it, thank you.
All right. I guess the question that we're at the reports by the commission, sort of, kind of, but the question that I'm asking, throwing out in general here is, with the implementation of live streaming of this meeting as a first, will that be the norm for future meetings, or will we, depending on the item, we would go back to the training room, or what? I don't know.
Thank you for bringing that up, because the other exciting piece of news is that we're hoping to get fairly quickly a table for this location right here with the document camera on it, so that instead of the public having to come forward and look at plans and having it be a little confusing, we can just project the plan onto the screen and use use a pointer. So that's our plan. That will not be as helpful for members of the public at home, because this is an audio-only cast, but for all other purposes, it will be an
So it sounds like we're going to be meeting in here in the
So,
future.
yes, I'm sorry. The answer to that is we do plan to move you all in here.
Okay. Interesting. All right. Very good. Anything else from any of the members of the committee? Again, so how was the first meeting?
Smooth.
All right. All right. With that, I'm going to adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
I don't know.